Right.
Good morning.
We are in a new format here. Hopefully being heard much better as we've got a little lavalier mic on.
That's the plan.
Does entail that we have to stand quite close to the screen. But anyway.
And stand up.
And stand up. So this may not be the massive 40-minute video that people are used to seeing. But anyway, happy Sunday, people. And John, do you want to kick off?
We played a lot of records last
night,
did. Actually. So it might still be the 40 minutes.
Might still be.
To kick off, this was sparked by a conversation we were having before we started listening to music, actually, which was Mark saying he attended a gig with Hamish Stewart and others from Steve Ferrone and
Molly Duncan and Steve Ferrone from Average White Band.
And I happen to have this in the box, actually, which is my favourite Average White Band album, which is called Soulsearching, which I've from the late 70s, and played the track A Love of Your Own from here. It's got a great sound, this record. It really has got. It's produced by Arif Mardin, and or Arif Mardin, I don't know how you pronounce it, actually.
I don't know.
And it's got that similar kind of sound to the Shaka Khan records around that time. Just really great production and great playing on it. So it's a good album. There's not a duff track on it, actually.
No. Well, followed that up, as it was a bit of classic Blue-Eyed Soul, really, I guess, with Ned Doheny. In fact, the track was co-written by Ned Doheny. That was what the connection was. This is a reissue, came out a few years ago. There was, I think, 3 of his albums. This one's called Prone, and we listened to Prove My Love. Just really beautifully, crisply produced, lovely horns, great, great dance tune.
Interesting character, somewhere between the kind of singer-songwriter thing and soul music, really.
Yeah.
This is a very real oddity, this record. This is a record called 101 North by a band. We're getting a lot of reflection here.
We are.
That's a bit...
that's better. Yeah.
It's actually a George Duke album. And I think there must be some contractual things going on here, but it's a properly made album, properly mastered, great sounding record. And it's his whole band he had in the late 70s, basically, playing on this record. And it came out on something called Valley View Records, and it was the only release on the label. And played the track Lady of the Night, which sounds very much like a kind of Miles Davis kind of style, almost like a tutu style kind of groove on it.
Said he wrote it for Miles.
He wrote it for Miles, yeah.
The Miles never used it.
So it's a kind of interesting one. It's slightly more electronic than some of the other George Duke records around the same time, but it's got that same kind of sound to it, actually. Really good stuff, actually.
Yeah, well, there was something in the production which led me to play this next tune, which I have to say a big shout out to Ben Costello, who I know is a big Japan fan. This is Japan and The Art of Parties, and we listened to the track The Art of Parties, which kind of came out in the early 80s, I think 1981. Really sounded, I just thought it sounded fantastic, actually. Almost sort of out Talking Heads, headed the Talking Heads, I thought. It was just a really original mix of interesting drumming, electronic backing, Mick Karn's bass playing, a nice horn part. Yeah, it was just great.
This is something I picked up recently. I had to get a new copy of it. It was I've got the original of this record, and I pulled it out to play it, and it had a Peter Gabriel record inside, which is something a very unpleasant surprise, actually, because I don't like Peter Gabriel very much at all. Anyway, this is Annette Peacock's first solo record she made, called I'm the One. Annette Peacock was a singer who kind of crossed over almost like the kind of experimental free jazz end of things with almost the kind of the UK end of the rock music thing as well. And this is from her first, which is a great album, very influential record. This actually, kind of a lot of people had bass stuff on this record. I know that Mick Ronson's first solo record pulled a lot on this, as well as obviously David Bowie as well. And I played the track Pony off here, which is a great kind of raw groove of this record as well. And sounds pretty amazing for 1971, which is when it was released and recorded.
And you said it was on the Main Man record label?
She was signed to Main Man Management at the same time, I think. Yeah.
Which reminds me that I've been reading a great autobiography of Tony Visconti, who was obviously David Bowie's producer on quite a lot of his albums, although he doesn't mention Annette Peacock. But for those people who like reading about music, I recommend that book.
Yeah.
So there was a kind of sultry, sassy soul funk meets jazz vibe, with a kind of big dose of electronics. And the natural track for me to play was Turn Out the Lights, Larry Young's Fuel. Yeah, just an absolute barnstormer of a track. Doesn't really sound like anything else. Some really, it just sounds like they're jamming in the studio.
Put the record down, tilt it back. You don't get as much glare off it. That's it.
There we go.
There we go.
Great cover.
Yeah.
Larry Young, of course, renowned for his pure jazz work, really. But he made a couple of albums as Larry Young's Fuel in the 70s, with mixed results. But certainly this tune is fantastic. Turn Out the Lights.
And natural follow-up to that really was from the first Betty Davis album. Betty Davis was famously married to Miles Davis, of course, as well at the same time, and introduced Miles to Jimi Hendrix and a lot of the electric music that he got into more and more. She was very much responsible for that. This is her first record, which has got most of Sly and the Family Stone playing on it as well, and it's a very, very groovy kind of hard-hitting funk, actually. It's kind of funk rock, really good. She was amazing. She made 3 or 4 records, I think, altogether. And people say that she was, massively underrated, and she would have been huge if she got the kind of attention she deserves. Yeah, great record. First Betty Davis, highly recommended.
Well, this is a rather unexciting thing to show you because it's just a white label, so there's absolutely nothing to see. This is a sort of advanced promo copy of an EP called Meds by an artist called Lizzy Emma that I will talk more about when we have the real deal, but it's sounding good.
Featuring some very nice bass playing from a certain Mr. Mark Williams.
Thank you very much, John.
It's great stuff. Really nice record, actually. I'm looking forward to the
official release.
Yeah. This, I don't know what made me think of this, actually, but started thinking of a track by Reuben Wilson, which is this was a kind of classic rare groove compilation that came out. It was the classic.
Along with Rare One,
which came out, which got a lot of people into music from the early 70s in the UK and London particularly. And this was a part of the shaken finger pop and family function kind of empire. So it's a track called by Reuben Wilson, Gotta Get Your Own, which is also the title of the compilation as well.
Yeah, very nice. I had heard this track actually on a YouTube video. I think it's called Slay 5000. A guy who just basically you just see a turntable and whatever tune he's spinning, but very nice audio quality. And it was Pursuit of the Pimpmobile by Isaac Hayes, and this is off the soundtrack to Truck Turner. And it's just an epic piece of orchestral funk. Really enjoying this. Really good. Yeah, very wide soundstage. Thinking of the soundtracks and also thinking of a tribute really to Michel Legrand, who died a couple of weeks ago, I think now actually. And this is his famous soundtrack for the Thomas Crown Affair, which has The Windmills of Your Mind, track sung by Noel Harrison, who was a Shakespearean actor, I seem to remember actually around the same time. Made some great music. I mean, my favourite of his is probably his album with Miles Davis, Legrand Jazz, actually, which is really, really terrific stuff as well. So yeah, this is from probably early 1969 or 1970. Very well known. Obviously his most famous piece of music as well. But a great soundtrack all round. John, can you just turn that light that's just on the side there? I'm just wondering, Which one? Sorry. You see a white switch? Oh, yeah. Ah, look at that. That is much better. It's like we've come into the light. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, hello again. Hello again. You can actually see us now, as well as hear us. Right. I went to Margate last week, which is on the coast in the southeast, and went to I've been there before. It's a very large sort of mix of a record shop and a coffee shop, and actually picked up a couple of good records, including one of our staples here on our VC sessions, Barry Wyatt. I didn't have this album. It's actually a Love Unlimited Orchestra Rhapsody in White, and we listened to the classic Midnight in You,
Fantastic.
which is a Gene Page and Billy Page
I think it was the first
collaboration.
Love Unlimited, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Really good.
Look at the quality of this, John. It's incredible.
Stepped up again.
Yeah, we really have.
Thinking of Gene Page and going forward a few years to the late 70s, early 80s. This is we play a lot of Isley Brothers. He's another staple of our sessions.
Yes, it's true.
Actually, not getting reflection either.
No, it's all absolutely brilliant.
This is an album that the Isley Brothers made after the younger group left and temporarily and came back again. And this is called Masterpiece. And it's actually a version of a Phil Collins song, My Best Was Good Enough track. And it's a beautiful duo between O'Kelly Isley and Ronnie Isley, and they both sound so similar. It's impossible to unravel their voices, but it's a kind of deep ballad arranged by Gene Page, which I think was a collection with Barry White. Yeah. Nice record. Obviously not as classic as the 70s stuff, but still pretty good stuff.
Damn good. I think we definitely took a break and sampled a Portuguese tart, as is our want, and came back fully satisfied and listened to Fire on the Mountain from the Grateful Dead, from the Gilbert Shelton cover of Shakedown Street.
Also, we had a Grateful Dead last session.
Yeah, is this a Lowell George production or not? No, it was.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, sounded good. Sounded great. John was telling me about Burning Spear doing a cover version.
Yeah, there's a lot of reggae cover versions of Grateful Dead songs. There's 2 or 3 compilations actually, and I think does a cover of that. Also, Estimated Profit, which is another song as well. I don't know what really prompted Yoda Tango, except that I know they are great. Psychedelia, I think actually, and I haven't played much of them recently actually, but I've been getting back into them for a while. And this is from I think 2 or 3 albums ago. This was their album Popular Songs, and I played the first track off, Here's a Fall off here, which is got string arrangements by, apologies to my sister if she's watching, I know she's scared of buttons.
Does she tune into this?
She does sometimes, I think, yeah. With string arrangements by Richard Evans, of course, who's famously worked on Cadet with Charles Stepney. Sounded very old, actually.
It did. I thought it was a sort of early 70s.
Yeah, it could almost be a kind of 60s, or 60s almost.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, great band. Always been very fond of them.
I played a track. Oh, this is the first press I'm just noticing. I think I must have picked up from a record fair recently. This is an album that I had when I was, probably 13, I think. It's the Procol Harum Grand Hotel. Sort of when they were sort of, past their kind of pop single peak, but a very interesting band. Gary Brooker's vocal, Keith Reid's lyrics. Great guitarist called Mick Grabham who appears on this. And we listened to Bringing Home the Bacon. It was a great breakbeat actually at the beginning. A really great drum beat, which is a guy called B.J. Wilson. But yeah, it sounded good.
Something about the guitar sound on that reminded me of Wendy and Lisa introduction to Purple Rain. We actually haven't played Purple Rain at a session for ever, possibly, I think. And you don't need much excuse really, but I've kind of been missing Prince a bit recently, I have to say. Kind of just thinking that his influence and his presence is definitely sorely missed. But anyway, I don't need to tell you about Purple Rain, you all know about it, but it's a classic track.
But also just to remember to listen to the end of it.
Yeah, just play it all the way through to the end. Amazing string arrangements at the end of it as well. Yeah.
Staying in classic album territory, we listened to, I really wanted to play Andy Warhol, but I forgot that Fill Your Heart kind of bleeds into Andy Warhol on Hunky Dory, so we listened to both tracks. Again, actually, Andy Warhol in particular just sounded fantastic. And actually, I thought Rick Wakeman's keyboard playing on Fill Your Heart was pretty stunning as well. Just a great album, and from a very similar period.
Yeah. Thinking of that time really more than anything else actually. This Robert Wyatt's live at Drury Lane came out on vinyl a few years ago actually, and I somehow missed it. But picked it up. Came out from Domino Records. I was actually at half of this concert. The train I was on broke down, so I never actually got to the whole thing. I was furious, actually. But this was the only time, really, Robert played live, actually, after his accident. And amazing lineup of people: Hugh Hopper, Fred Frith, Mangazy Fazer, Gary Window, Mike Oldfield, who plays great on this record, actually, Judy Tippett, Nick Mason from the Pink Floyd on drums. All kinds of people. But really amazing kind of spirit on this record. And actually, considering that it looked very chaotic on stage, but it was actually incredibly well put together concert, actually. And I played the Little Red Riding Hood Hit the Road track, which is off Rock Bottom, of course.
It was sounding pretty out there.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Sort of. It kind of was reminding me a bit of a bit of Gong.
Yeah.
But also kind of even more out.
I seem to. I thought David Annam was meant to be at the gig. Actually, but he wasn't there.
Well, Sandy Denny. What's this track? This album called? Oh, the North Star Grassman and the Ravens. Beautiful track we listened to called Black Waterside, which featured some fantastic guitar playing from Richard Thompson from a very similar period, I think, as the. Actually, this is a little bit earlier, isn't it? I think it's in 1971. Great album, what a great singer, and what a sad loss that she's not with us.
Yeah, that's right. Well, was with us such a short time.
With us such a short time.
Thinking at the same time, haven't played any Van Morrison for quite a long time. I'm not a kind of huge Van Morrison fan, but I do find myself listening to his music more than I think I do, I think. And this is off his album Hard Nosed the Highway, which I always thought was a little bit underrated, actually. Came out at early 70s time, and played the track Warm Love, which is just a great kind of mid-tempo kind of soul tune, really.
Great cover as well.
Yeah, and he also covers Kermit the Frog's Green on here as well, which has got to be a pretty imaginative cover choice.
This definitely clocks in probably as cover of the session.
Yeah,
it's of course the unmistakable Little Beaver. Particularly this get-up really is the sartorial way forward for all of us.
Yeah.
This we listened to a track called I'm Losing the Feeling. This is the album Joey on Black Cat Records. I mean, just that kind of classic. What is this area of the States where is it?
Miami.
It's Miami. Yeah, that kind of Miami 70s funk sound. Betty Wright, Lattimore. Yeah, brilliant.
George McRae.
Yeah.
Little Milton as well. I don't know what prompted this, actually. I think we might have some kind of change at this point.
Yeah.
But went for Miles Davis's Four and More, which I've been reading, kind of just noticed that some of the autobiographies and biographies are a lot of people, this was their kind of gateway record into jazz, actually. With the band, which eventually became the band with Wayne Shorter, but before Wayne joined with George Coleman on tenor sax and an incredibly young, phenomenal Tony Williams on here as well, playing almost ridiculous kind of drumming. And this is the partner album to the other one's called My Funny Valentine, I think, which is the other half of the concert, which is the more ballad stuff. This one was much more up-tempo, and I played the track Seven Steps to Heaven.
Just incredible sort of time changes going on.
Ron Carter managed to hold everything together.
Yeah, with Herbie on keyboards, Herbie Hancock, who also, this is a Herbie album, Fat Albert Rotunda, which I think featured a lot of TV theme tunes that he'd done for various Bill Cosby shows, which someone you can't really talk about anymore. But Tell Me a Bedtime Story was the track, which is just a beautiful tune. Not particularly typical of the album, actually, but I think it's one of Herbie's finest compositions.
It also appears on Quincy Jones.
Does.
Yeah, great stuff. It's kind of transitional record, that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's between kind of his
into electric,
Blue Note
really.
stuff into...
he's playing Rhodes on it quite a lot. This
is a great release, which has just come out on... company, I can't remember who they were. Vollen Brink Records. It's their first ever release. And they basically worked with Blue Note and done a completely analogue remastering job on a set of Duke Pearson compositions from his kind of late Blue Note period, when he was getting heavily into Brazilian music as well. So this is, you can hear the roots of all of the Return to Forever kind of Chick Corea sound, Airto and Flora on here as well. The great album. Say about half the tracks are influenced by Brazilian stuff, but they've done a beautiful job. I mean, it's kind of great remastering, really nice cover with
beautiful.
And it's called I Don't Care Who Knows It, and it's by Duke Pearson, and I think there's only 1,000 copies of it, and I think they're pretty much all gone actually, and not massively expensive. It's not like one of those kind of jobs where you're paying £100 or something other for it. It's about £25, but really worth it actually. Great music, nicely put together.
In the same vein of extremely well put together reissues, this has just come out in the UK. It's the Clifford Jordan Quartet, Glass Bead Games. It's Superfly Records who've put this out, who are from Paris, yes. And it's a double album. Just a incredibly well recorded, but also beautifully played Strata East recording that I know John has as well. I mean, they've been quite hard to find.
I've got 3 copies of this now.
Yeah.
Got a CD, a vinyl edition, that one.
Yeah. But I mean, highly recommended if you can find a copy.
For me, the best Strata East record, actually. Great playing by Billy Higgins on drums.
And Bill Lee on the bass.
Bill Lee, and really good stuff. I don't know, something about the drum sound, I think, made me think of this ECM record, which is a kind of, I might have even shown this before the session.
I don't think you have.
I haven't.
No.
It's by Richard Berak, I think you pronounce his name, Bill Berak, who's a great pianist, playing with George Mraz on bass and Jack DeJohnette on drums. So it was a kind of quite an influential ECM record, but hasn't really ever had that much attention. And in a way, it's quite typical Blue Note, ECM rather, piano trio stuff, but beautifully done, very, very restrained. And a really real sense of groove from Jack DeJohnette on here as well, restrained. I played the track Sea Priestess. So the album's called Elm, very highly recommended.
Staying with Jack DeJohnette and staying with ECM, we listened to Jack DeJohnette's special edition, Tin Can Alley. This is a band he had with, who was on this? Chico Freeman on the bass clarinet, or the tenor sax, John Purcell. It's not more, there's a few people there. Peter Warren on cello. Quite an experimental album, all Jack DeJohnette original compositions. And we listened to The Gree Man, which was a very sort of percussion and drum-led piece, sort of lots of overlapping loops of percussion that all was slightly out of sync, but it was still kind of grooving. It's kind of very arresting to listen to. So, yeah.
It's all Jack DeJohnette.
It's all Jack DeJohnette, yeah.
Speaking of great drummers, last year, first CD of the evening, actually. Last year, Steve Coleman and the Five Elements came to London, and everyone just slayed everybody, basically.
Excuse me.
They basically just destroyed the audience, I think, actually. It's amazing. If you've not seen Steve Coleman play live, it's fantastic, actually. And this is a live recording from a few years ago, Resistance is Futile, which is on, sadly, no longer label Bleu, which was a really good French label, and played their version of Ali Cha, which is a Charlie Parker tune. And just phenomenal band, ludicrous musicianship, and kind of highly recommended. But I think they left the London jazz scene reeling in shock by all accounts, actually, when they came over here.
Well, also featuring an English bass player.
Absolutely, Anthony Tidd. Went to America. Yeah.
Another CD. This time it's Brad Mehldau, Largo. We listened to When It Rains, which sounded fantastic, I have to say, with some stellar drumming.
Matt Chamberlain.
That's right. Very good.
Very good.
Yep.
Staying on a jazzy thing, went for we played a bit of Carla Bley the last 2 or 3 sessions actually. This is her album Sextet was kind of mirrored by Steve Swallow, who went into the studio with the same band and made an album dedicated to her. Actually, I love her facial expression.
Yes.
On the front, it's very funny. So the band was with Steve Swallow on bass, Hiram Bullock on guitar, Larry Willis on piano, Victor Lewis on drums, and Don Elias on percussion, and played the track Crab Alley off here as well. And it's actually not quite as stunning as the Carla Bley record, but it's still very, very good stuff. And yeah. Also on, well, kind of half on ECM. It's on Watt, which is distributed by ECM.
Follow that up with Upendo Ni Pamoja, the Ramsey Lewis trio, which was an album I had bought for John until I discovered that he already had it. So I now have it, and I have to say I'm very delighted to have it. Just that. Well, it's the album that has, of course, Slipping Into Darkness, which is stunning, and there's just something about the sound of it, which is produced by Ramsey. Every track is a killer, and we listened to another staple of our sessions, a version of People Make the World Go Round. A great version. Yeah. Highly recommended.
Also got a classic version of Slipping Into Darkness.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of interesting curiosity, really. I mean, there's a band called Jules and Binoculars, which is obviously a line from a Bob Dylan song, and they've made 3 records which all cover Bob Dylan songs, and it's an kind of very loosely put together improvising setup with saxophones and reeds, bass and drums alone, improvising on the Bob Dylan tunes, and they're great records. Actually, I listened to them a lot. Came out on a Ramboy label, which is a European label, and it's Michael Moore, who's the saxophone player, Lindsay Horner on double bass, and Michael Vatcher, who worked with people like John Zorn, stuff in America, on percussion. Very restrained, kind of interesting choices of songs, because you don't think of Bob Dylan songs as being
jazz standards.
And I played the versions of the great version of Masters of War on here.
Next up, we listened to a track from an album which I hardly ever listen to this track, because I'm always listening to Street Life, which is the Crusaders when they were just a trio. The album called Street Life. We listened to a Wilton Felder tune called My Lady.
Really good.
It did. John says that all their music has this kind of warm soulfulness to it, and very much evident on this tune. I remember seeing the band at what was then the Hammersmith Odeon, exactly around this time this came out, with Randy California. So Randy Crawford. Which was amazing. Yeah.
Interesting, Randy California. The Crusaders, the mind boggles. Bill Evans. Don't really say much about Bill Evans really. This is from I think it was one of the first records he made after Scott LaFaro sadly was killed in a car crash, and features Gary Peacock on bass, who's a pretty good
fantastic
replacement for Scott LaFaro, and Paul Motion still on drums, and played the track Little Lulu off here, which is it's a very nice record, this one, and reissued fairly cheaply a few years ago actually as well, which is nice.
So last session John turned me on to a Stan Getz version of Infantize that was on a CTI compilation, or
no, it's a Arista compilation.
An Arista compilation. Anyway, I then,
which is a Wayne Shorter tune,
hit him back with another version of Infantize off this album, which is Live at Montmartre, which features Joanne Brackeen, Niels Henning, Ørsted Peterson and Billy Hart, and very, very good album, and another fantastic version of what is a sublime piece of music, Infantize.
Joanne Brackeen's a great piano player. I seem to remember Derek actually talking about on his channel, Joanne Brackeen a while ago. So from there went to I think we were freestyling by this stage, actually, not necessarily following the plot.
No.
Went for the amazing Paul Motion trio with Bill Frisell and Dewey Redman, probably one of the best groups really of the last 25-30 years really. Sadly of course no longer around because Paul Motion has passed on, but this is from the album Trioism, which came out on Winter and Winter and was a reissue of something on JMT, and played the track "It Should Have Happened a Long Time Ago," which is one of their also on their first album they made for ECM as well. So just great stuff. Almost telepathic communication between the three of them. Extraordinary stuff.
I think I slipped in another Lizzy track somewhere because this was my last tune. I think you've still got something in the bag there.
Yeah.
So this is the other cover of the session.
Yeah.
Gary Burton doing a very good impression of Peter Tork from the Monkees, actually, with that hairstyle, I think. This is the album Lofty Fake Anagram, and another appearance from Steve Swallow on the bass, and Larry Coryell on guitar, Bobby Moses on the drums, and a Duke Ellington track called Fleurette Africaine. Sounded lovely.
Yeah, really good. Great record, actually. Those early Gary Burton records are really nice. Then, I think this might have come after the Lizzy track, actually.
Yeah.
It did, yeah, definitely. But played... I've always been a big fan of Lambchop Oz. I think you probably know if you've seen previous videos. And this is from the album Damage, which was 2 or 3 albums ago, I guess. And played the track Paperback Bible. Just kind of almost like kind of dreamy ambient music. Very interesting, great production on this record as well. And he's now, of course, working with a vocoder on his new album, which is kind of really interesting. But Lambchop, kind of, I suppose you'd call them Americana, really, although they're not. I'd call them experimental group, actually, from Nashville, Tennessee. Good side of Nashville.
Well, I guess it leaves me to say, tune into the All Points radio show. Leave a link below. You can tune in live on a Monday, 8 till 10, or I'll leave a link to some other shows. Also, to welcome Bobby Gardner to the VC, I'll put a link to her first video, intro. And also another guy whose name has escaped me, but I will also...
was it Mellow Man?
It was Mellow Man.
Yeah, it was really nice video.
Yeah.
Nice comments.
Nice comments, and showed the first Lewis Taylor album on vinyl, which I was extremely impressed about. And
in fact, I just noticed on the way down there's a new video from him.
Oh, great.
I haven't seen yet. But.
Good. So, yeah, I think we're going to head off to do some digging in Ramsgate. See you soon.
See you soon.